everyone, it's Siobhan here. My video today is going to be a little bit different from what I normally do, and also a little bit longer. This is going to be my very own sort of braid dictionary, if you will. In this video you'll find short visual how-to guides for nearly every braid that I know. For those of you that have been following my channel since the very beginning, you probably know which braids I favor at this point and how to do them. But every day I've been getting new subscribers, and I'm often presented with questions like, what's the difference between a rope twist and a rope braid? What's a one-strand braid? What's a Dutch braid? What's a lace braid? Recently, I've been trying to change the format of my videos to make them shorter and more concise. I've also added voiceover to make them feel a little bit more professional. I don't know if that's working, but it seems to be a little bit more popular with my viewers. I find that the videos in which I speak for long periods of time, they're not as popular and people get bored with them. The problem with this though is that I don't have as much time to explain particular braiding techniques, and I figured that this would be a good answer to that problem, so I can put everything into one video, and then whenever somebody has a question about how to do a specific braid, I can use this video as a reference. Because this video is going to be sort of long, you'll find that there's an index here by my head, so you can skip ahead to the places that you want to go. It'll also be in the underbar below. In between braid explanations, I will have images of hairstyles that I've done and uploaded to YouTube. They will all be linked, so if you're interested in seeing them, you can just click on the picture and it'll take you to that video. And they will all be relevant to the braid that I'm explaining during that point in the video. So for example, if you're doing a two-strand sort of knot braid, I will have a picture of a hairstyle that actually employs that braid, and you can see what it looks like as a relevant hairstyle. One of the problems that I face every time I put my hair into a braid is something called braid shred. And that's basically when you create a braid and there are pieces of hair sticking out of it. And this can happen for a number of reasons. Perhaps you have layers near the front of your face, as I do, and they just don't fit into the braid. You might have some damaged ends or maybe new growth, or you might just have really fine slippery hair that falls out of everything. So I have a number of product suggestions to help with this little braiding issue. My favorite products to use is hair pomade. The brand that I use is called Got To Be. I get this in my local drugstore for like, I think somewhere between $5 and $8. I'm not really sure. This is what it looks like. It smells kind of orangey. It lasts me about a year, and it's very similar to wax. So if you've had a boyfriend or a husband who uses wax to spike up his hair or slick it back, it's kind of like that in that it's very sticky. But it's not as heavy or as stiff as wax, which makes it perfect for those of us with long hair. Now the way to apply this is really easy. I'd always suggest starting off by using a little bit and then building up, because it's always easier to put product on as opposed to take product off. I have used this from root to tip, but most of the time I use it anywhere from like the ear down. And I just kind of put it on the palms of my hands or on the pads of my finger, and I will run it through each individual strand of the braid. And by doing this, the hair is still pliable, it still moves around, it's not stiff like it would be if you were using wax, but the hair sticks together. So those little annoying bits that might stick out of the braid, they're now smushed together and they fold into the braid a little bit more neatly. Another thing that I really like to use is hairspray, and I actually don't use this as often because it can be somewhat drying on my hair. Hairspray is really good for those of you that have really fine or slippy hair. It can add some grip to it. And the way that you would do that is you would just spray your hair, spray all of it, and then brush it through, and it gives it this sort of tackiness that makes it easier. I had a girlfriend with like super baby fine hair, and it would like literally slip out of my fingers, and the hairspray trick really helped. I found that the pomade was actually a little bit too heavy for her, so that's why we used hairspray. So those of you with fine hair, hairspray might be the thing for you. Another way of using it to get little flyaways or little braid shred ends to lay flat is to spray it on your fingers and just kind of smooth those edges down. Or you can spray it directly onto a comb or brush and then use it that way to brush or comb it back. And I find that this brand is called Sheer Blonde. This is from John Frieda. This is what I'm using right now because my hair is light and or light color, and this works really well for me. I think they do have one for brunettes, but I like the Garnier ones. God, I've tried every kind of hairspray. It's sort of up to you which brand you'll want to use. The next tip is more of an opinion than it is actual advice, but I do find that having appropriate sized hair elastics helps with the aesthetics of your hairstyle. An example I can give of this is last September I was at a Renaissance fair in upstate New York, and there was a beautiful young woman that was sitting in front of me during the joust, and she had a gorgeous costume on, and she had this long, fine blonde hair, and she braided the two pieces back and tied them together with a huge elastic like this, and it just looked really ridiculous. I find that if you have fine hair or thinner hair, you should go with a slimmer or smaller hair elastic. This is kind of what I use. And if you're somebody with really thick, sort of curly hair, then go for the bigger elastic. I tend to like, for the small accent braids, those little tiny clear elastics. They come in packets of anywhere from like 50 to 100, and they're a couple of dollars. I kind of think of them as being disposable. And they're great. They're great for those tiny little braids. And because they're so small, you don't notice them as much, and it doesn't detract from the aesthetics of your hairstyle, as I said. So I think that finding hair elastics that fit your hair is also very important. Another thing to remember is that you should work with your hair and not against it. What I mean by this is there are going to be braids and hairstyles that you will be able to do, and then there will be some that you won't be able to do. One of the questions that I get all the time is, do you think that this hairstyle will work for my hair? And unfortunately, I can't really give a very honest answer to that because we're not sitting in a room together, and I'm not face to face with you, and I don't really know what your hair type is or your hair texture is. The cool thing about hairdressing is that it's all about creativity. So a lot of times I will find a style that I like, I will look at it, I will try and practice it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and when it doesn't work, I will just keep going and going and going with it until it will slowly morph into something that looks nice on my texture, on my length, and my hair color. That actually just happened with a Vikings hairstyle that I recently started working on. I was really frustrated because I managed to get the back to look perfect, and then the side pieces just looked terrible and stupid. So I'm working on how to fix that right now. So that would be my advice to you, is not to freak out if you can't do something or it doesn't look good on you. Try and find something that does, because more often than not, that'll be your go-to hairstyle, and because it'll look good on you, everybody will want to have what you have, if that makes sense. I don't know. Another tip that I have is to divide your hair before you braid it, and this is actually really helpful to those who have layers. If I want to put a braid down my back, most of the time these pieces will kind of just fall out. So what I do is I separate my layers, I will braid them, and then I will tie them back together here, and then with whatever hair is left over, I will braid that, and that way everything is pulled off my face. And I have several videos to that effect that you can check out. I forgot to mention this, but sometimes curling your hair beforehand helps reduce braid shred as well. When the ends of your hair are already turned in, it's less likely that they'll stick out of the braid. Some side notes before beginning. I tend to start my braids with my right hand, so most of my instructions involve numbering the strands right to left. However, if you're a lefty, you can just switch everything around, because truth is, it really doesn't matter which hand you start with. It's all about preference. Secondly, many of the instructions may seem redundant, and I apologize in advance if you find that aspect of this video to be tedious. However, there are many different handholds and braid patterns, and I wanted to include as many as I could so that you might be able to find the methods that suit yourself. Also, the entire script for this video will be posted on my website, and that's just in case you need to read any of the instructions. And lastly, I hope you'll consider subscribing to one, if not both, of my YouTube channels. Links will be posted here in the video and also in the information box below. The first braid I'm going to show you is a simple one strand. Here I'm sectioning a piece of the mannequin's hair and just looping and knotting it. Think of a needle and thread and how you'd have to knot the ends of the thread before beginning to sew, because that's basically what this is. Single knots are great anchors for flowers or other kinds of accessories, and they can also work well as fillers for complicated updos. In this version of the one strand braid, I'm adding hair into it as I go along, thus extending the length of the braid well past that of my mannequin's actual length. And it's a very simple pattern. Section a piece of hair, knot it, add in another piece of hair, knot it, and so on. I recently filmed a crown of flowers hair idea by creating a series of these lace knots all the way around my head, which you can see here. This is by far one of the easiest and quickest of the two-strand braid patterns. Section a piece of hair and divide it into two. Imagine tying the laces of a shoe, and that's basically what this is, just a series of square knots going down the length of the hair. The result almost always resembles that of a chain link, at least in my opinion, and again, it makes a great filler for some updos, or can be worn as is.
In this version, gather all of your hair to one side and split it in two. Again, this is nothing but a series of square knots with an elastic at the end tying it together. Click the link in the right corner if you'd like to see a video I've filmed incorporating this idea. It's from a few years back, but I still think it's a pretty workable style. Here, I'm starting at the top of the mannequin's head, sectioning a piece of hair from along the forehead. Divide the hair into two and make a normal square knot. Before moving on, gather another section of hair from either side of the head and add it into the strand on the right, and then do the exact same thing on the left. When you've done this, make another square knot. Essentially, it's the exact same thing as a two-strand knot braid with the exception of the hair you are adding in as you go along. For more hair ideas that incorporate this two-strand technique, you can click on any of the following images. To do a rope braid, separate a section of hair into two pieces and twist both of these sections in the same direction. Here, I'm moving them towards the right. When you've got this done, twist them together in the opposite direction, which in this case was towards the left. Obviously, it doesn't matter how you start this, so long as the two strands are twisted in the same direction. You could twist them both to the left and then to the right, and it'll work exactly the same way. Once the elastic is in, you'll find that this is actually a very secure braid. Click the picture to see a style that I've named the Celtic knot, which exclusively uses a series of these rope braids. Gather a section of hair and divide it into two. Don't twist the individual strands. Instead, carefully wrap them around each other. It's literally that simple, and the reason I like this braid is because it sometimes feels and looks softer than the traditional rope braid. You'll probably notice that it's a little looser too, but this is easily remedied by just twisting the twist. Click this image if you'd like to see how I used this braid to create Sansa Stark's Tyrell twists, and click either of the following images to see a French crown braid version of the two-strand twist. And lastly, if you'd like to see a style that involves both the rope twist and braid, click this picture of my Daenerys Targaryen Season 4 inspired hair. Gather a section of hair and pinch off a small strand from either side. Here I took from the left, but it works just the same on the right as well. Curl the smaller section over the main piece and then wrap it under and through that loop. Add the end of that small section back to the main portion of hair and split off a new piece. Follow the pattern. Curl it over the large section, fold it under, and loop it through. Repeat this until you get to the ends of your hair. Click the following image if you'd like to see these braids incorporated into an easy updo. The double caterpillar braid is one of my favorites, and I've been using it a lot lately in many of my Viking-inspired ideas. Start in the same way you would if you were doing a regular caterpillar braid. Like before, I broke a piece off the left side, curled it over the main section, wrapped it around, and then through the loop. The difference here is that when you add the smaller piece back to the main section, your next little bit will come from the opposite side, which in this demonstration was on the right. And it's the same pattern of over and under the larger section and then through the loop. Continue this to the ends of your hair and then tie with an elastic. Click on either of the following pictures to be taken to two different videos that employ the use of a double caterpillar braid. Both looks were inspired by the Viking character of Lagertha, and if you'd like to see a French version of the double caterpillar braid, click this image. I don't think it should come as a surprise that I've named this one the butterfly braid. Here I've gathered all the hair into a ponytail, but you can do this braid on smaller sections of hair as well. Take a piece from either side of the ponytail and tie them together in a square knot. When you're done with that, flip the hair over and use the same two strands to tie another knot on the underside. Next, add a little more hair from your ponytail into both of the smaller sections and repeat the steps. Square knot on the top, square knot on the bottom, add more hair into both sections, and continue. Eventually you'll either run out of hair or the ends will be a little scraggly, so here I'm just wrapping them around my finger and folding them under with a pin. Here I've sectioned some hair near the face, and I've begun by breaking a piece off on the right side, wrapping it under and looping it through in normal caterpillar braid fashion. Once you've got the first pass done, add the little piece back to the larger section. Instead of using the loose hair that's already in your hand for a new bit, pick up a piece from along the hairline and use that to wrap over, under, and through the loop. And that's all there is to it. Instead of using new pieces of hair from that larger section, pick them up from your hairline. Personally, I think this makes for a really cute braid. This is almost the exact same thing as the previous braid. The only difference is that you're making links on both sides of the braid while adding in the hair. To make a fishtail braid, gather a section of hair and divide it into two pieces. Separate a small piece of hair from the outside of the right side and cross it over, joining it to the left side. Now take a small piece of hair from the outside of the left section and cross it over to the right side. Continue repeating these simple steps until you get to the ends of your hair. Just in case you're unfamiliar, this is one of the braids that you'll see a lot of in the Lord of the Ring and Hobbit films, so if you're into that elfish style, this is definitely one for you to learn. Click the image if you'd like to see an easy updo that uses all fishtails. To begin a French fishtail braid, section a piece of hair from the front of the head and split it into two. Here I cross the right strand over the left. Now pick up a piece of hair from along your hairline on the left side of your head and cross it over to the right. Then pick up a piece of hair from the hairline on the right side and cross that to the left. Repeat the steps until all of your hair has been added into the braid. Just a little side note, but this braid is one of my least favorites because of my fine hair. It seems to almost always fall out as soon as I pull it back. So to remedy this, I've had to split my hair into two to get it to hold better. Click the picture to see how I turn these two French fishtails into an easy little updo. Starting from right to left, number the strands 1, 2, and 3. Fold 1 over 2. 1 is now in strand 2's position. Go back to the right and rename them again, 1, 2, and 3. Now fold 3 over 2. Strand 3 will now sit in strand 2's position. Go back to the right and rename the strands again, 1, 2, and 3, and repeat. Right to left, it's 1 over 2, then 3 over 2. You're basically crossing the outer strands over the middle over and over. The pattern is exactly the same, only this time the strands are folded underneath one another. So from right to left they are still 1, 2, and 3. 1 under 2 and then 3 under 2. This braid is basically a regular 3-strand braid, but instead of dividing the hair into 3 equal strands, divide the hair into 2 even pieces and then 1 tiny piece. The uneven sections create a really cool little pattern. Again, this is basically a regular 3-strand braid. Divide the hair into 2 thin sections and then 1 large section. Click the picture to see how I applied this braid technique to a summer hair idea. To start a figure 8 braid, divide the hair into 2 even pieces and section a small piece off the right side. Use this smaller piece to wrap over the right section, then under the left, then over the left, and lastly back under the right. It's an extremely easy pattern to create and remember, but one of the problems that I always run into is that the small piece I use to wrap around runs out quickly. So as an alternative, I'll use a piece of ribbon instead. Tie it around your hair elastic, divide the hair into 2, and just begin the pattern. Over right, under left, over left, and then under right. Divide the hair into 3 pieces, with the middle section being thicker than the outer two. In this demonstration, I'm starting by folding the outermost left strand over the center one, and I'm using the rightmost strand by laying it over the left, then under the center section and through the loop on the left side. And then of course you tighten the stitch. Next part of the pattern is taking the outermost right side, folding it over the center, and using the leftmost strand to fold over and under and then through the loop. To be very honest, this isn't a favorite braid of mine, and truth be told, a double caterpillar braid looks very similar to this, and it's also a lot easier to do. But I felt I'd include this one just in case because I'm sure some of you may like this. Start by making a regular 3-strand braid. When you get to the ends of your hair, grab onto the center strand and carefully slide the other 2 up towards your roots. I'm not a huge fan of this braid either because it generally leaves you with a scraggly center strand for a braid tail, but I did use it for a white queen hair idea with some ribbon, and if you're interested, click the picture to go to the video. When doing a French braid, the strands are folded over one another. Start by making a section at the front of the head and split it into 3. From right to left, name the strands 1, 2, and 3. Begin this as you would if you were doing a regular braid by folding 1 over 2 and then 3 over 2. Rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, and 3. Now add some hair to strand 1 from along your hairline and fold it over 2. Do the same on the other side of your head by adding hair to strand 3 from your hairline and fold that over 2 as well. And that's basically the gist of it. The pattern is the same as a regular 3-strand braid, with the exception of hair being added into strands 1 and 3 before they're folded over 2. Continue this pattern until all of the hair is added into the braid. When doing a Dutch braid, the strands are folded under one another, and that's what creates the pop-up effect. Create a section at the top of your head and, like before, split it into 3 and name the strands from right to left 1, 2, and 3. Fold 1 under 2 and then 3 under 2. Go back, rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, and 3. Like before, section another piece of hair from along the hairline, add it to strand 1 before folding it under 2. Then again, add hair from along your hairline to strand 3 and fold that under 2 also. Continue this pattern until all your hair is added into the braid. You can create a lace braid with as many strands as you like, but for the purpose of this demonstration I'm doing a simple 3-strand braid, and of course since it's a French lace braid, the strands are being folded over one another. The pattern is exactly the same as a French braid, with the exception of hair being added into only one side of it. The Dutch lace braid involves the same pattern as a regular Dutch braid. The strands are folded under one another and hair is added into only one side of the braid. If you'd like to see how the lace braid can be applied to an actual hair idea, click on any of the following images and they'll lead you to the matching videos. As you can see, the lace braid is definitely a favorite of mine, and I've got many examples of it that you can choose from if you so wish to. Grab a section of hair and split it into 3. Begin a normal 3-strand braid and do a few passes. When that's finished, drop the lower strand and section out a new strand with hair from beside the braid. Fold this new strand into the braid, continuing the pattern of dropping and picking up strands. Click on either image to see Waterfall Braids in action. This is just one of several different ways of doing a 4-strand braid, and it's relatively simple. Divide the hair into 4 strands and name them right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Fold 1 over 2, then under 3 and over 4. Go back and rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Repeat the pattern 1 over 2, under 3, and then over 4. Continue this the length of your hair and tie it off with an elastic of your choice. Gather a section of hair and divide it into 4 strands. Name these strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cross 1 over 2 and 3 over 4. Go back and rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now cross 3 over 2. So again, name the strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Strand 1 goes over 2 and strand 3 goes over 4. As you can see, the first part of the pattern just involves the first and third strands crossing over the second and fourth ones. And the second step in the stitch is crossing strand 3 over 2 in an X shape, hence the name of the braid. Click either of the following images to see this braid come to life in an actual hair idea. Divide your hair into 4 pieces and name them from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cross strand 1 over 2 and under 3. Now go back and rename the strands again from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Coming in from the other side now, strand 4 goes under 3 and then over 2. And that's basically it. 1 goes over 2 and under 3. Then from the other side, 4 goes under 3 and over 2. When you get to the very bottoms of your hair, you'll notice that there's a strand that appears to run straight through the braid while the other ones curl around it. Hold the end of this strand and slide the other 3 up. Arrange accordingly. Section a piece of hair and divide it into 4 strands. Name them from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Strand 1 goes under 2 and 3 and then over 3. Rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Come in from the other side now. Strand 4 goes under 3 and 2 and then over 2. Go back, rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, and 4. Repeat the pattern. 1 under 2 and 3 and then over 3. And then 4 under 3 and 2, and then over 2. Click the link in the left corner if you'd like to see a little bit more of a longer explanation on this braid. Divide a section of hair into 5 pieces. In this demo, I've got 3 in my left hand and 2 in my right. Start with the hand holding 3 strands. Take the outermost strand and fold it over to the other side, which for me was the left. Now I have 2 strands on the left side and 3 on the right, so I'll take the outermost strand from the right and cross it over to the left. You could number the strands if you wanted to, and if you click the link in the corner, you'll come to a video in which I did that, but honestly it's not really necessary because this braid's as simple as crossing the outermost strand from right to left. Divide the hair into 5 strands and name them from right to left 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Weave strand 1 over 2, under 3, over 4, and then under 5. In this way, strand 1 is now sitting in strand 5's position. Go back and rename the strands from right to left 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Repeat the steps 1 over 2, under 3, over 4, and under 5. This braid's pretty similar to the 4-strand weave pattern. The only real difference is the extra strand. Divide the hair into 5 strands and name them from right to left 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Place strand 1 over 2 and then under 3. Strand 1 will now be in strand 3's position. Go back and rename them from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now from the other side, place strand 5 over 4 and under 3. Strand 5 will now be in strand 3's position. Rename them again from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Basically, you're taking the outer strands and weaving them through so that they'll sit in the middle of the other strands. It's 1 over 2 and under 3, and then 5 over 4 and under 3, and so on and so on. I've already done a few tutorials on the 5-strand French braid, so you can click on either of the following pictures to see the matching videos. Some of my favorite styles include hippie braids that join into a combination braid at the back of the head. Basically, this is when you take 2 braids, usually with the same number of strands, and join them together into one. In this version, you can see that I have 2 3-strand braids on either side of the head. Here, I'm just carefully laying them one on top of the other and matching up the strands. Once they're all aligned, you simply continue making your braid. This method works perfectly for any 2 braids so long as they have the same number of strands. In this version, I still have the 2 3-strand braids, but this time I'm just going to combine strands. The goal is to take the 6 pieces of hair and condense them into 3, so I'm joining the 2 on the right, the 2 on the left, and then the 2 in the center. Again, this method works with nearly any kind of braids, so long as they each have the same number of strands. If you'd like to learn about perimeter braids, click on either of these images to be led to the matching videos. Also, if you liked the caterpillar and fishtail braids, check out my mermaid braid, which is kind of a combination of the two. Once I go past 5 strands, especially when doing my own hair, I sometimes have a little trouble keeping track of what's what. So one of my favorite little tricks is to tie a small clear elastic around each section. When I'm finished braiding, I can easily snip them out of my hair. If you'd like to see a video in which I do just that, click this image. Here I've got 6 strands tied off, and I'm starting with the outermost strand on the right. I'm weaving it over, under, and over. We could number the strands, but it really isn't necessary because it's such an easy pattern. Basically, you're moving the first strand through the others until it becomes the last strand. And it works for a braid with any number of strands. Here I've got 8 pieces, and it's the same pattern. The outermost section is woven over and under. Here I've got my 6 strands again, and I've divided them in half so that I have 3 strands in each hand. Starting with the section in my right hand, I'm going to take the outermost strand and weave it over and under the other 2. That outermost strand will now be sitting in the space between the 2 sections. Now on my left side, I'm going to take the outermost strand and weave it under and then over, so that's just something to remember. On the right side, you begin the weave pattern by going over first, and on the left, it's going under first. Now the outermost strand from the left side is also sitting in the center space. It's with these 2 pieces that you'll make the X shape, which is the next part in completing a full stitch. But it's important to look at where these strands are coming from because you want them to mesh together seamlessly. The rightmost strand was last woven under and the left strand was last woven over, so that'll mean that the right strand will rest on top of the left to make that X shape. Here I'm going to use the same pattern with 8 strands. I've started by dividing them in half, 4 in each hand. Again, beginning on my right side, I'm taking the outermost strand, weaving it over, under, and over. That strand is now in the center space. On the left side, I'm taking the outermost strand and weaving it under, over, and under. Now that strand too will be in the center space, and it's with these 2 pieces I'll make the X. Again, look to see where they're coming from. The right strand was last woven over, and the left strand was last woven under, so this means that the left will rest on top of the right in the X strand. So one more time so that you can see this works on any even number, I've got 10 strands tied off, 5 in each hand. Starting on my right side, I'm going to take the outermost strand and go over, and then under. Again, that strand will now sit in the empty space between the two sections. Now on the left side, I'm going to take the outermost strand and weave it under, over, so that strand will also be in the center section. Looking at these two pieces, I can see that the right strand was last woven under and the left was last woven over, so that means the right strand will sit on top of the left in the X pattern. The pattern for braids with an odd number of strands works in pretty much the same way. It can be applied to any odd numbered braid. Here I've got 7 strands. I'm starting by putting 4 in my right hand and 3 in the left. You want to begin working on the section with the most strands first, so I'm taking the outermost strand from my right hand and weaving it over, under, and over. It's now passed through the strands that were in my right hand and has made its way over to the left, meaning I now have 4 strands on the left side and 3 on the right. Now take the leftmost strand and weave it over, under, and over. It's now been passed from left to the right hand. So as you can see, all I'm doing is moving the outermost strands back and forth between hands. So just that you can see that this works on all odd number strands, I've got 9 pieces here tied off. Again, I like to begin with my right hand, so I've got 5 in that hand and 4 in the other. Taking the outermost strand from the right, I'm weaving it over, and under. It's now gone from my right hand to my left. On the left side, I'm taking the outermost strand and weaving that over, and under. So as you can see, it's the same thing in that all I'm doing is moving the strands on the outside back and forth from hand to hand. Click on any of the following pictures to learn about how you can use ribbon as strands in a braid also.
Thank you so much for watching my video. Before you go, I'd love it if you would check out both of my channels, Ladollyvita333 and Ladollyvita333. There's really no difference between them. I kind of upload to both weekly, and I will also enclose some links to various YouTubers that I'm friends with. Shannon, Heather, Lucy, there's a couple of them, and I will have links to all of them in the underbar below. They do things that are very similar to what I do, and they're great girls, so I hope you'll check them out as well. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!